Poem A River by A.K.Ramanujan. Attipet Krishnaswamy Ramanujan was an Indian poet, scholar of Indian literature who wrote in both English and Kannada. Ramanujan was a poet, scholar, professor, a philologist, folklorist, translator, and playwright. His academic research ranged across 5 languages: English, Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, and Sanskrit. He was awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award posthumously in 1999 for his collection of poems named The Collected Poems. Poem A River. In Madurai, city of temples and poets. Now see, the title A River is used for the Vaikai river because that river flows from the Madurai city. Here that Ramanujan is depicting the real picture of the river Vaikai, but in fact this is reality not only of the Vaikai river but also the entire rivers from the India. He says that in Madurai, city of temples and poets who sang of the cities and temples, every summer a river dries to a trickle in the sand, bearing the sand ribs, straws, and women's hair, clogging the water gate at the rusty bars under the bridges, with patches of repair all over them, the wet stones glistening like sleepy crocodiles, and the dry ones 7 water buffaloes lounging in the sun. The poets only sang of the flood. Now see, here the poet is speaking about the another poet from the Madurai city. He says that in Madurai there are many poets. Means Madurai city is famous for its temples and poets. Here that A.K. Ramanujan, he has focused on the Vaikai river. He says that the poets from Madurai, they spoke only about the floods, but no poet spoke about the reality of the river. Here that A.K. Ramanujan presents the actual picture of the river of 2 seasons. Means initially he speaks about the he speaks about the summer days, means how the river looks like in summer, and in the second half of the poem he speaks about the monsoon. In the first half of the poem he speaks the summer picture of the Vaikai river. He says that when there is a summer, that time the river dries, and when river dries, that time the sand ribs of the river are exposed, and there are straws and women hairs, and those straws and women hair, they are blocking the water gates. He is depicting the picture of the gate. He says that the bars of the water gate are rusty, and that bridge that is repaired many times, there are many patches on the bridge. And he says that the wet stones are shining like a sleepy crocodiles. Here the A.K. Ramanujan, he compares wet stone with a sleepy crocodiles. Means here he has used a simile metaphor to compare wet stones with a sleepy crocodiles. Another thing is that he compares dry stones with 7 buffaloes who are lounging in the sun. It means that he has compared the dry stones with saved buffaloes, and those buffaloes are lounging, those buffaloes are laying in a sun. Means here he has used a simile figure of speech to compare wet stone and dry stones. And he says that nobody poet spoke about this reality of the Vaikai river. Means every poet, whether that poet may be old or new, those poets sang about the flood, but nobody poet spoke about the real picture of the Vaikai river at a summer time. He was there for a day. Now see, here he has used the pronoun he for the poet. That poet may be old or that poet may be of a new generation, but he speaks about the poet from a Madurai. He says that he was there for a day when they had the floods. People everywhere talked of the inches rising, of the precise number of cobbled steps run over by the water rising on the bathing places, and the way it carried off 3 village houses, one pregnant woman and a couple of cows named Gopi and Brinda as usual. Now see, in this part or the second half of the poem, the poet A.K.Ramanujan speaks about the monsoon picture of the Vaikai river. He says that when there is a flood, that time people are observing the flood water. They are observing the bathing step of the river. Means there are some steps which leads towards the river, and there is a crowd, and those people, they are observing the rising level of the Vaikai river's water. They are observing those steps, and one by one those steps are submerging. One by one those steps are going underwater, and people are observing those steps. Now see that A.K. Ramanujan speaks that the Vaikai river has carried 3 village houses with its flood water. It means that the Vaikai river had destroyed the houses of 3 villages. Means here the A.K. Ramanujan has presented the real picture of the rivers, not only of Vaikai but also all rivers. Means it means that when there is enormous flood, that time river destroys some houses, river destroys the families. Means the destruction caused by river is presented in these lines. Means the A.K. Ramanujan does not glorify river, but he presents river as it is. He says that the Vaikai river has carried the houses of 3 villages, and besides this, that river has carried one woman. Means that one woman is drowned in the water of the Vaikai river, and that was a pregnant woman. And besides that woman, the Vaikai river carried 2 cows, and the names of those cows is Gopi and Brinda. He says that as usual, it means that this thing does not happen just once, but this thing may be happening every year. Every year that Vaikai river may be carrying the houses of the people. This river may be carrying the cattle in its water. It means that this thing is as usual. It does not happen just once. In the next line, that A.K. Ramanujan says that the new poet still quoted the old poets, but no one spoke in verse of the pregnant woman drowned with perhaps twins in her, kicking at blank walls even before birth. Now see, in this line or in the last stanza of the poem, that A.K. Ramanujan speaks that the new poet, they are following to the old poets. Means old poet glorified river. The old poet, they did not focus on the actual picture of the river. They focused on the flood, but they did not mention that Vaikai river's flood carried the houses of 3 villages. The Vaikai flood carried the pregnant woman, or the Vaikai river carried some cattle with its flood water. Means old poets, they did not mention this thing, but they glorified the river, and the new generation poets are following the old. Nobody spoke about the pregnant woman who was drowned in the river, and that pregnant woman had twins in her womb, and those twins died before their birth. Those twins, they were kicking at a blank walls. Here the word blank walls are used for the wombs, means those twins may be kicking to the womb and those twins died before their birth. It means that in this line the poet speaks about the reality of the flood water. In short, this poem, A River, speaks about the original picture of the river. He has depicted the picture of river of two seasons. First is that the summer season. In that summer season, that Vaikai river that is dried, and when the river is dried, that time the sand is open. The when sand is open, that time hairs and other garbage that is exposed, and that garbage is blocking the water gate. And in the next half of the poem, poet presents the picture of the flood and the destruction caused by the flood.